Welcome back. Another edition of the FFPC Weekly Preview. Week 15, officially the championship rounds. Thursday night kicked off. Me and Terp were talking about before the show. If you had McCaffrey, if you had Kittle, you're feeling good this morning, this Friday. Terp, the chase is officially on. You have one main event team in.
I
So
have one main event team. It's
you had McCaffrey last night, so you're feeling
McCaffrey.
okay.
So it was a good start, especially in the first half. Second half, they kind of took off, which was a pain in the butt. But we're hoping just to get up there and just get a chance going. The first week's always big. I mean, if you're coming from the back, you gotta put up a big number to give yourself a chance because some of these teams up top are just powerhouses. I mean, just absolute powerhouses. And if you're different from them, you gotta definitely put up a 200-point week, somewhere close to that, to give yourself a chance going into the final two.
Absolutely, and I'm sure a lot of teams are eagerly awaiting this week. You want to get the head start. We're going to try and do our best to give our predictions for this week, Week 15, and so we're always going to start it off here. The people want to know the players to avoid more than anything. So, Terp, who are you avoiding this week? You think is due for a disappointment?
There's two guys that I pretty much have gone back and forth on this before the show, looking and trying to figure out the answer to this question. We just got news, and it's bad news for fantasy football. Zach Wilson will start at quarterback for the Jets. That is not good for Elijah Moore. That is not good for Garrett Wilson. One of them might get there, but to me, if you have a better option, I'm starting a guy like Chris Moore, who I talked about last week on the show. Way better game flow when it comes to the Texans probably being behind. I'm not starting Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore this week.
Yeah, that literally could not have been worse news, especially for Garrett Wilson, I would say, because, Elijah Moore obviously perked up last week. You're like, maybe this is it. But Garrett Wilson, the term league winner was being thrown around his late season. I mean, he was solid before that, but you almost compare to how Amon-Ra St. Brown finished, just absolute explosive finish. Then you see him getting drafted maybe in the top 3 rounds for 2023, but this really takes the wind out of his sails and the Jets as a whole. And you said at the show is Mike White kind of unclear when he's going to be back. Do they even go back to Mike White, depending on how their playoff picture looks? Is it just maybe give Zach Wilson one more chance? So Garrett Wilson, not just for this week, but for the next couple weeks, might be in a really rough spot there. Zonovan Knight, you think it's good for him though?
I think it's okay. I mean, it's definitely somebody's going to get there. It's just a question of, I mean, you're Tyler Conklins of the world, Knights of the world, obviously Wilson and Moore. I just don't, and cold weather. Obviously, in New York, I mean, it's freezing in Philly right now. I know the weather this weekend is supposed to be tough around the East Coast. I don't know. I'm pretty much fading that whole team. I think the Lions go in there and beat them.
The only thing with Garrett Wilson before obviously the news, it was probably going to be more positive. He was probably going to pop up in our discussions on this show, but I honestly thought back to our live draft coverage from the summer. He was going in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, and I remember multiple shows where you and me were like, "Are we discounting him? Like, dude was a top 10 pick," and lo and behold, people were in fact discounting Garrett Wilson.
Definitely should have discounted him pretty much to not draft it. That's how bad he's been.
Yep. So, mine, you mentioned the weather. Tua Tagovailoa is my do not start of the week. 24 degrees Fahrenheit is the projection. Some say with the wind chill could reach up to -8 is how it's going to feel. Plus, he's coming off 2 bad weeks. Chargers was a real disappointment.
It seemed like Chargers figured them guys out.
And obviously, the Niners defense is arguably one of the, if not the best in the league right now. And he struggled against them 2 weeks ago. But still, there's some concerns. Is McDaniel's scheme being figured out? All of that combined, you have that cold of a weather. You're playing a motivated Bills team trying to avenge their loss earlier in the season. And Tua's just not look great. So I'm just staying away from him. I know he carried a lot of owners at some point to the championship rounds, but vibes are not good related to Tua right now in that weather. I'm staying away.
I think they get their doors blown out tomorrow. I don't even think that's a game. There's just too much. Miami, very good story, very good team this year. Obviously, Tua, Hill, Waddle, they've been monsters. The running backs have been solid, but they ain't ready for that snow. They ain't ready for Buffalo. I mean, yeah, people could say, well, Tyreek Hill might have an advantage because nobody can catch him as it is in the snow. I mean, one move, he's gone. I get all that stuff, but I think the Bills go in there and make a statement. They avenge that loss early in the season and just blow the doors off them. 35-7 Buffalo tomorrow.
Wow. Terp, after that bold prediction, give me a player who's going to score 2 touchdowns this week.
This is another one that I was going back and forth on, but I'm pretty confident in it. He's a guy that burst on the scene after being injured last week in the game we were just talking about. Mike Williams just has a perfect spot. Tennessee defense, who's not good at all. Secondary is very suspect. They've been just getting gutted left and right last week by Evan Ingram. Trevor Lawrence had a monster game, pretty much got people in, best ball tournaments that were out of it. I had a team with Evan Ingram and Trevor Lawrence that I thought was totally dead going into the week that just found a way to get me in the second place. And now I have a shot going into, the final 3 weeks. So that's definitely great. So Mike Williams will be my 2 touchdown guarantee. I feel like it's a perfect spot for them.
Yeah, I like that call. Mike Williams obviously exploded dealing with the injuries, which we've just come to expect with him. But when he's on, he's on. We talked about him before we started recording. Mocked incessantly. He can never score touchdowns. Hurts is the goal line back. Miles Sanders is double-digit touchdowns this year. I think he gets 2. Bears rush defense is porous. They've given up 3 straight games with 100 yards. I think Hurts and Sanders both go off yardage-wise, but I also see Sanders getting into the end zone.
I hope so. I hope that's another just fantasy, just like last week, just put up numbers. I don't care who gets them. I prefer it to be Hurts personally, but
yeah,
I mean, that game I want to be as high scoring as possible, and that offense keep buzzing. Because then
Eagles' offense is just a wagon. And while we're on them, though, a slight sidebar. Any concern about Devontae Smith with Goddard coming back?
Not really. I mean, I just feel like they're just buzzing. I mean, I feel like the team. Sorry for the baby crying in the back.
No worries.
She's going through it today.
No worries.
But no, I don't have any worries. I think they're just going to continue to spread the ball around.
Okay.
Wes Watkins is a guy that probably will take the seat, with Goddard being back. But I'm not overly worried about it.
Take it from our resident Eagles fans, because I know there's been some concern about the splits with Goddard and without for Smith and his struggles. But
that's fair.
Terp's just saying the offense is buzzing, and there's no stopping that. Terp, y'all must have forgot who's a player that we aren't talking about enough this week.
A guy that pretty much was a top 5 round draft pick early in the season, who pretty much doesn't exist on fantasy radars right now, but has a great matchup on Monday Night Football. A.J. Dillon. The Rams are a team that's dead. I mean, they're I know that Baker Mayfield had that great story coming back and all this stuff, but the team is not good. I mean, they're a team that's just playing to get the season over with. Baker Mayfield, I've always been a Baker guy. I mean, I think he definitely is a serviceable. I made a lot of statements earlier this season that I thought he was going to be a lot better than he was, and he was not good at all in Carolina, but he's still a serviceable NFL quarterback. But I just feel like the Packers, Rodgers coming off the bye, that game just has a feeling of Packers just making a statement, running the football down their throat. A.J. Dillon, just a monster game.
Yeah, A.J. Dillon was one of the players I think Elijah Moore and Allen Robinson were 2 of my guys this year, both horribly wrong in that. A.J. Dillon was an underrated one that a lot of people got wrong.
He's a guy that came on late, and I wasn't on anything Green Bay outside of Christian Watson at all on the whole team. But then I came back on the A.J. Dillon, talking to some people, people get in your mind sometimes, and it's like, start drafting A.J. Dillon in the 5th round. I was just like, it had to be if you're looking back at it, it had to be the perfect storm for A.J. Dillon to get to where a 5th round pick was going to pay off. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
Like, you need Aaron Jones to somehow get hurt, which he never did. I need that offense to buzz, which it never did. So it was just, you're doomed before you even started.
For sure. I'm going to go with my guy who I think people aren't talking about enough. Probably my most said player on our little preview show, Chris Olave. He slowed down a bit. Garrett Wilson obviously took a lot of the thunder. He's still in a top 30 receiver play this week. But he's only had 4 catches and then 5 catches last 2 weeks, and he's just in a great boom position right now against Atlanta's secondary, which has been bottom 5 in the league against fantasy-wise against receivers. So give me Chris Olave. The offense has the pieces. It's really frustrating. I think Jameis would be a better option for them. I really has surprised me that they never went back to him. But I think Chris Olave is going to be in a good spot to kind of get back some of his mojo that he hasn't really lost the last couple weeks, but he's definitely slowed down a bit. So I'm going to go with Olave. That's my y'all must have forgotten. Terp, let's close it out. As always, your play of the week.
This one is definitely not going to be one that you're not going to expect. You're going to expect. It's a guy that has been terrible lately. Is he hurt? The coaches don't like him. You just talked about the game, but I feel like Alvin Kamara, this is the week that he just puts to George Kittle Thursday night performance, literally out of nowhere. I mean, you haven't seen a good Alvin Kamara game since the Raiders. He's pretty much been an afterthought. Mark Ingram's gone. But the 2 things you got to worry about, Three things. I'm going to take it back. Number one, stupid Taysom Hill. Just tired of that guy. Just totally tired of him. Just stop. Stop with it already. It's enough. Number two, their idiot coaching staff. If I don't understand how they don't realize that Alvin Kamara is not the best offensive weapon with Chris Olave they have on the team. Are they have nothing to play for, so what exactly are they doing? And number three, and this is the weirdest one out of them all. If I see Dusty David Johnson getting more carries than Alvin Kamara this week, I literally might vomit on people. Like, I don't want to see any of that stuff. Alvin Kamara, 25 fantasy points, play of the week.
Alvin Kamara probably had the weirdest arc of, because you and me were both hyping him up in the preseason. First couple weeks,
he was the best discount no matter what anybody says. Everybody who was smart knew he wasn't getting suspended. He was pretty much a gift in fantasy drafts early, 3rd round pick. And it's been frustrating.
But then the first 2 weeks were like, oh, maybe we were wrong. And then he had that middle early of the season. We're like, oh, yeah, we were right. And then he just absolutely nosedived out of nowhere.
Since that Raiders game, I don't even know if he's even played.
Just been terrible. So Alvin Kamara is your play of the week. My play of the week, give me Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco panned out in the end, which is kind of wild to think about. 7th round pick, all the fantasy buzz, all preseason hype team, doesn't do anything early. Comes out, he's a starter now. They're playing the Texans. I think it's just going to be a great game script. The Chiefs should go early.
I hope it's an Isaiah Pacheco and you get Ronald Jones some carries. I don't want to see any Patrick Mahomes, and I definitely don't want to see any Travis Kelce.
I'm sure you don't.
All those teams to be eliminated after this week.
Exactly. No, I think this game script is just too perfect for him. He's had double digits pretty much every week since he's become the starter. Running back against the Texans is easy enough, let alone in that Chiefs offense.
Look what Zeke did last week. Look what Tony Pollard did last week, and they could have had a lot more.
Give me Isaiah Pacheco. That's my play of the week. That's going to do it, though, for me and Terp. We gave our thoughts, players to avoid, players who we love. Good luck to everyone in the championship rounds. Terp, good luck to your team especially. We'll be back next week. We'll kind of recap maybe where the championship rounds are at, and we'll see you guys then. Thanks for listening.
Good luck, guys.